Hi, my name is Hassana Maina. I'm the Executive Director of Anti-Sexual Violence Lead Support Initiative, short for ASVIOL Support Initiative. Um, I'm a lawyer as well. Uh, I write poems sometimes, so I think I'm a poet. Uh, yes, I think basically that's all about me. So I think the story behind ASVIOL Support Initiative is one of realization that something has to be done about sexual gender-based violence. In 2018, this young lady came up on Twitter to speak about how her boyfriend assaulted her, and it sparked the campaign, the I Will Me Too campaign, and that gave courage to other people to come up and speak about sexual violence and how they've been assaulted, by people close to them, uncles, relatives, etc. And it got me thinking about when I was in year one in the university, and we were a group of roughly 10 girls sitting in the hostel floor talking. And almost everyone had a story about being assaulted by an older male relative someone that was close to them when they were young. And I think having to read all the horror stories then in 2018 and relating it back to my year one in the university just got me thinking that something must be done. So then we started a movement, So in Maiduguri, I gathered young people together and we went to schools, we went to communities, and we're speaking about sexual gender-based violence. And we're talking about the culture of shame and silence because we've realized that this culture of shame and silence further emboldens perpetrators to just keep it up because at the end of the day you rape someone and nobody is shaming you, instead they're shaming the victim or the survivor. They're saying why are you wearing what you're wearing? Why are you out at night? Why are you? And that movement kept on. We kept on going to schools, communities, just speaking about the culture of shame and silence. But it also got me thinking, because I was a law student at the time, what about the legislation? So then there was the clamor on the VAP Act. So we did the North Normal campaign where we brought young people together that were state leads from different states in northern Nigeria. And I coordinated that rally. And the aim was simple, to just stand in front of the State House of Assembly of each of these states and to call for a domestication of the VAP Act. So the VAP Act is the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, which has been passed by National Assembly since 2015, but it hasn't been domesticated in some states in the country. In fact, in so many states in the country at that time. I think at the time it was only Kaduna, in northern Nigeria that had domesticated the act. But since then, the act has been domesticated across so many other states. So in Maiduguri, where I was, we had the campaign. We had it in Sokoto, in Bauchi, in Yobe, in Kano, etc. Around 8 states. Even Kaduna had a solidarity campaign. So since then, we've gotten the VAP Act, to pass. But afterwards, I went for my master's, and during my master's, I was out with my friends, and then I went to use the restroom. And behind the restroom, it just showed, "Are you on a date? Is it not going well?" Go to the bartender and ask of Angela, the person, the receptionist, the bartender, the whoever is on duty would take you out without a fuss. And it got me thinking, if it was in Nigeria, it should be like you're out with a man at this time of the night, all of those things that would invalidate your story of either being harassed or, being abused by someone. And I started to think around how the whole social psyche of people must change. We must frown against abuse in all its form, that people don't feel safe. When you abuse somebody, you automatically just feel like, I've done this and I'm no longer part of the community because the community would not accept you. And it got me thinking about the public space. It got me thinking about women in the public space. It got me thinking around how sexual gender-based violence because of my community engagement. I would hear men say, "Oh, I don't want my wife to go to work. I don't want her to go to. I don't want my daughters. Is it the same school you want our daughters to go to where teachers assault girls? Is it the same?" So because of that, it's like, "Oh, I don't want my wife to do all this. I don't want my daughter to do all this." So we're protecting her from the public space. And it got me thinking, we cannot achieve gender equality if we don't have women in the public space. We cannot, in all certainty, have women in public space if we do not take away the factor, that benevolent misogyny uses to shield women away from the public space. So what do? We have to ensure that sexual gender-based violence in all its form is condemned, and in all its form it's stopped. Part of what we do at ASVIOL Support Initiative is to have the ambitious statement of ending SGBV, in our communities. Okay, so I think for me, my whole life is a testament of mentorship. I have had so many people support the work that I do, and even if it's not like financial support, even if it's just saying, "Hey, you're doing well," even if it's reading your concept notes and brainstorming on ideas, even if it's just having conversations on the things that you say you want to do, I've had ample of those supports. With regards to training, when we started, there were so many organizations that wanted to partner with us and wanted to even apply with us. And like up until now, we still have support. Where as a young organization, as a young women-led organization, we've got bigger organizations saying, "Oh, we've got this grant. Come and let us have a consortium. So we can apply for this together." We've got also old bigger organizations saying, "Oh, we're allowed to subgrant this, so we would." It's still in the work, nothing's been out yet, but these are part of conversations that we're still exploring. But when I think about nonprofit, for me, it's about how can we encourage local philanthropy. So even the experiment I'm doing with ASVIOL Support Initiative is to see how we can push for local philanthropy. This is our issue. This is an issue here. This is something that we all agree that is not normal. And that's why even with the campaign that we did for the VAP Act, it's called Not Normal. A play of, for the word not and normal. So like, this is not normal. Sexual violence is not normal. So if we've all agreed that this is not normal, how can we ensure that we're able to put our resources towards fighting this? How can we ensure that we've got more people to care about these issues, that they're able to say, "Okay, I have salary of maybe 50,000 naira per month, but I care about this cost and I'm going to give 100 naira every month, towards this cause. How can we have more people do this?" So that's part of, what we're exploring and part of the strategies we want to employ to see how we can sustain an organization. Okay, so I have been involved in this work since 2018. Um, it started, with the campaign, like I mentioned, and then since then it has just been building and building and building and building. For me, I think my biggest achievement would be seeing the VAP Act, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, being passed, especially in states like Sokoto and Borno, because when we're having that rally, it wasn't easy. In states like Sokoto, the state lead was beaten, she was brutalized. Her hands was even broken. In states like Borno, they agreed for us to have the rally, and then on the day they said we couldn't have the rally anymore. But with the kind support of State House of Assembly member, he asked us to come into the State House to be able to do our rally, and that was beautiful. So for me, I think having the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act passed it's one thing that I still look back and I'm just so grateful to have been able to contribute in my own little way, to seeing this become a reality. So I think the biggest challenge that we face in social development work is where people now look at people that own social development work as the government. So I feel like there is a gap between beneficiaries, and the government and the people that do social development work. where accountability is now shifted to those that are doing social development work instead of those that, have been elected. So, for instance, ASVIOL Support Initiative is not a response organization. What we do is try to see how we can work on policies, how we can help, with policy engagement, community engagement, policy advocacy, rather, community engagement, how we can do research, how we can help with creating awareness, etc. But at the end of the day, we then have to see, sometimes you then get calls in the middle of the night that, oh, this person has been raped, this person. And before you know it, this is not part of your purview. This is not what you're doing, but you have to then do it because also there is limited resources, government resources to be able to do these things. So you have to now take up the mantle to do certain things that ideally, should be that of the government. And then when it comes to funding, the civic space keeps shrinking by the day. We keep on having problems with regards funding because now donors have more stringent rules, towards being able to access some forms of funding, So as a young women-led organization, for instance, if they have such strict, stringent rule of you must have existed for 5 years or for 10 years or for, and you have all of these ideas, but like nobody is giving money in your hands to be able to do it, then you have to think about other ways to see how you can do the things that you're doing. So what could have been done on such a large scale, you end up doing it on such a small scale, and it's kind of demoralizing because you know what you can do, with the right amount of funding. And also, I think when I talk about the shrinking civic space, we must talk about government's responsibility in ensuring that the civic space keeps on shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. With all of these stringent regulations, on non-governmental organizations, and all the time, the government keeps thinking of new ways, to ensure that it brings new regulations to kind of further strangulate, non-governmental organizations. So, but also, even with the community that you're engaging, there's also a whole lot of gaps you tend to see. So you go to community to engage them on SGBV, on the culture of shame and silence, because you want to push behavioral change. But then you get slapped, or you get face to face with poverty. Then you get face to face with health crisis. Then you get face to face with lack of access to education. Then you get so all of these things are then intersect in a way that ends up becoming a big bowl of rubbish, and you're like, where am I starting from? What do I do next? And then you're doing all of this work, but then it always just seems like it's not enough, or you're not doing anything, because at the end of the day, people that are supposed to have been doing this work, so that you can just augment what they're doing, have not been doing the work. So at the end of the day, it's just like, where do we start from? And that's why part of the work we do at ASVIOL Support Initiative when it comes to policy advocacy is to also look at government's budget. How can we push for more gender-responsive budgeting, especially with regards how governance is done in the country? So, how much money is government putting into girls' education? How much money is government putting into, women's healthcare? How much money is government putting? So, because you cannot say you care about women in all of these ways, if it doesn't translate to how, if your money is not where your mouth is, basically. So yeah. I think what I've learned is that the best life to live is that of impact. What keeps me, or wakes me up every morning, is knowing that I'm coming to meet a team of talented, passionate young people that are working so hard to ensure that we have changes in our communities. And seeing that these people are willing to stake their neck, to do this work with or without funding, to do this work with or without the right support, to do this work even when it's unpopular to do so, makes me believe in humanity. It gives me courage to know that the next generation, our generation, would change things up. Our generation is really ready to take responsibility for our communities, to take responsibility for our lives. And that just keeps me inspired. But more specifically, with regards to work that I do in gender, I have learned the unfortunate lesson that misogyny is a worldwide phenomenon. It might rear its ugly head in different ways. It might show up in different circumstances, but everywhere in the world, misogyny thrives. So when we work in our own little corner here at Aswell Support Initiative and we're challenging misogynistic practices, we must then think about how people in South Africa are doing the same, people in Germany are doing the same, people in the US are doing, because if we don't come together, to work on that system, then changes will just happen in small pockets. But for us to have changes in really large scale that we want to have it, then we must ensure that we come together and we're able to exchange knowledge and also exchange solutions. Lessons to young women: be yourself. But you cannot be yourself if you don't know yourself. Listen, the the work of getting to know yourself is not a pretty one. you know I know that we're all on Pinterest, and we've all we glorify our lives, or what is the word they call beautify. There's a way we do it. You wake up, you have a cup of coffee, and then you go for your hot girl work, and you do this. All of these are the pretty things that you can show on Instagram, but really knowing yourself is taunting, it's ugly, it's it's a lot of work, but you must do that. You must do that so that you know yourself. And when you know yourself, you should ensure that you love every part of yourself. Because the world would hate you. The world would hate you for being fat. The world would hate you for being too skinny. The world would hate you because your hair is not long enough. The world would hate you because you are too loud. You're too opinionated. You're too everything. But once you know yourself, once you love yourself, once you can go back and sleep, knowing that you're that girl, nothing will stop you. So I think for the longest, I've always lived in my ecosystem. I've always lived because I've intentionally surrounded myself with people that think like me, with people that have the same values and moral system as I do, with people that we have similar icks and similar things that gets us angry and gets us happy. The older I get, the more I try to reach out to other people. I've come to realize that we're very different and we think very differently. And unfortunately, some thoughts are very dangerous, and some thoughts are very divisive, and some thoughts are injurious. So I've also come to realize that I cannot combat those thoughts by being very combative or being very, because the same way I hold on to some values so strongly is the same way other people have been taught to hold on to their values, and no matter what it is, so strongly. And that's one of the things we try to do at Aswell Support Initiative, is if someone has, let's say, oh, I don't like women are supposed to just cook and not go anywhere, women are supposed to be locked up in the house forever, women, and they hold on to those values strongly, perhaps because of the environment they grew up in, or the kind of knowledge that have been available to them. How can we ensure that we combat that knowledge with more knowledge? And how can we ensure that that knowledge is readily available, just so that everybody is able to look at these things, and everybody is able to, because I think I trust in the human mind. I trust in the human mind to be rational. I trust in the human mind to be kind. I trust in the human mind to be empathetic, to others. So how can we ensure that we give all the resources that is necessary to ensure that another person that is thinking, oh, women don't deserve anything, ends up saying the information that we put out there, ends up saying, because we have a podcast called Let's Talk SGBV, where we try to make it humorous, where we try to make it serious, where we try to make it, all those forms. But the aim is just for us to talk about sexual gender-based violence. So imagine someone having access to that resource, just, and able to listen to people's stories and able to look at it and able to see things that sort of relate to that person. What kind of a world will we create, when we combat bad knowledge, with good knowledge? So instead of when someone says, oh, this, and then you're shouting and nobody is hearing anyone, how can you, I don't like the word bigger person, but just how can you ensure that you have more responsibility in ensuring that we keep our planet sane? That you have such personal responsibility and you're saying, okay, I will keep myself self aside. I'll keep ego aside. I'll keep all of this aside. And I will try to see how we can get to a place of understanding with this person. Um, I think that's one of my dreams. It's hard because if you know me, you know that I can be very combative as well. But that's my aspiration, really. That's what I aspire to be, and I hope we all aspire to do the same and be the same.